Matthew Wright is asking, what are the most important things to look at in Google Analytics to gain insight, both for revising copy and for building out customer avatars?
I think Joel's got this one better than I do, but like I said before, that second page is always really important to look at, like where are they going next, that they didn't get the information you intended them to get. Yeah, Joel would have better answers.
I don't know that I would. I mean, analytics, the important thing I want to start by saying is like, one single data point is never, ever going to be enough, right? If all you do is look at heat map software, for example, and you're like, shoot, no one's scrolling to the bottom of the page. All you know is no one's scrolling to the bottom of the page. You don't know if that's good, if that's bad, why they're doing that, what might be causing that. So analytics is only valuable in conjunction with other data sets. It's really useful for some things and downright dangerous for others. But some of the reports that are useful, as Rebecca just said, is the second page report. So go to landing pages, not the Google Search Console one, but the content one, add a dimension for second page. And what that's going to show you is where people come in and where they go next. Now, why is that valuable? It tells you what they went looking for, what they didn't find on the page that they came into. Other things that can be, sneakily useful are things like we got insight out of when I was working for an online divorce company. We saw, holy crap, we filtered conversions by gender. Now, normally that's going to be kind of a non-factor. But in divorce, we know women in the real world initiate divorce like far more often than men. But what we saw was men were converting at like an outsized rate. So there was this weird misalignment that ultimately led us to go look for other data where we found out that, hey, we're not addressing a bunch of the issues that are a little bit more common to women, like having dependents or being fearful of their spouse. So that was a kernel of insight that we then could take and go try to understand, why do we have this discrepancy in the data? So reports like device reports, how do you convert on mobile versus desktop? Second page report can be enormously helpful. Demographic data, useful to an extent. Looking at customer journeys can be awfully helpful. And then from there, it really comes down to like, how well are your events and conversions set up? So if you have really well set up conversion events, then you can see, okay, what chain of pages typically leads to a conversion, or how many visits does it typically take till somebody converts? And those are all kind of kernels of insights. They're not conclusions unto themselves. They all give you clues as to what's going on. And then out of the qualitative research that you're hopefully doing, you get some more context to go make some changes.
Incredible. Anything to add, Rebecca or Shannon?
Joel's got another great answer there, but I always, that's more of a Google specific, because I always just do polls, surveys. Like I always go back to the client and ask questions directly to them to gather more of those insights. So data along with the qualitative data, along with the quantitative data, I guess. Qualitative and quantitative. Did I say those right?
So I was wondering how long it would take, but there's an SEO question. So how do you balance like writing for SEO and converting? Can you do them both well at the same time? Is it a balance?
Yeah, I think it's a balance. I wouldn't go crazy, like we're past keyword stuffing. I'm lucky to have a really good in-house SEO expert. So we work closely together. He has like lists of keywords that are good. Like he has all the scientist data on that. But yeah, ultimately the copy has to come first, and never like stuff keywords in. And there's weird combinations you'll find too that you wouldn't think.
No one else wants to touch SEO.
Joey, weren't you like SEO man before copy?
Like I worked agency side for almost 5 years. My role was SEO before I did any copywriting. So I get where this question comes from. It's a balance. I will say that your messaging will be markedly worse when SEO gets their way most of the time, because SEO, the danger with SEO when you focus on it too much, SEO focuses fundamentally on getting people to show up. That's great. Conversion focuses on getting people to take action. Also great. if SEO wins out without considering getting people to take action, not great. And so that's where you get all kinds of nonsense like, well, we have to have our keyword in the H1, so the headline you wrote can't stand, and our headline has to read cheap auto parts instead of having some sort of compelling sales pitch. So it is a tightrope. It is a balancing act. I would say when you're writing for humans, I think the big goal of Google is to serve people. And I think over time, optimizing for the algorithm is a losing effort, because over time, the algorithm is trying to optimize back to people. So, the balance comes through where, yes, your copywriter should have a sense of the keywords you're trying to target. I think there are far more SEO levers you can pull, like link building, like title tags, like places where you have a little bit more bandwidth. I think setting an arbitrary word count is a terrible thing to do to a copywriter, because it forces them to chuck a bunch of filler in. That's not actually helpful. But a wonderful thing happens when SEO and conversion copywriters pull in the same direction. When SEOs care about what happens after someone shows up, and copywriters also care about incorporating language that's going to help those people get there, and everyone's thinking about it through the lens of awareness and informational needs, then yeah, both can win. But there's probably going to be compromises on both sides. And given the choice, I would much rather try to pull other SEO levers first to get people there than to sacrifice the overall message as like move number one in that chain.
Also, I don't know if anyone else went to Inbound with HubSpot this year, but they were don't quote me on this, but they were talking. I encourage you to do your own research after I state this. But HubSpot was talking, I don't know who it was talking about it, but they said that Google was actually getting better and trying to work their SEO into this more conversationalist, like how people actually want to be communicated with. So it was less of, SEO is evolving. I guess my bottom line on that, and it's always evolving. All these techniques are always evolving. So I think the way, from agency side back in the day, it was always SEO and copywriters butting heads, but it is that if they can have a nice marriage of it and stay up to date and always be watching what's happening with that industry, you'll have a better chance of reaching your audience in multiple avenues that way.